Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Launch Space. Today we're talking about the latest news for Azure Synapse and Purview. And I have a guest host with me today, which we're great to have. Adi Polak, thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate you being here. I know you were at some other Synapse and Purview events recently. You were able to cover those. So yeah, thanks for being here. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. It's exciting to see that we're having these events. So yeah, I am Adi Polak. I'm part of Brian Bent's team, and my specialty is distributed data. So, Synapse, Purview, it's exactly that topics that I'm usually writing on, sharing content, and this is my expertise. So super excited to be here today and learn from all of you and also listen to your questions because we know questions are important and this is our main way to learn new things. So please ask questions.
Great, thank you. And so we've got a great agenda going on today. We've got 6 30-minute sessions, and the first 3 are on Purview, and then we cover Synapse, although there's going to be some overlap between the sessions as well. So I call it Team Purview and Team Synapse. We're going to have the first session is Quick and Easy Enterprise Data Discovery for All with Gaurav Malhotra, and we will take it over to Gaurav so he can show us what he wants to show us.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Gaurav. I'm a product manager in the Azure Purview team here at Microsoft. So what I want to talk to you today is about how Azure Purview is laying the foundations for effective data governance by providing you automatic data discovery and classification. But before I go there, I want to start with some of the data that we have been seeing. As you can see, like with IDC projecting that by 2025, the expected global volume of data is going to be more than 175 zettabytes. So as we talk to customers, we learn that data is the most strategic asset. And today, yet 3/4 of that data has not been analyzed. And when we go and learn, we found out that part of the reason for that is data is spread all over the place, whether it's operational sources, SaaS sources, on-prem, multi-cloud. And in addition to that, it's hard to make sense of that data. And most of our customers today are using manual processes to do that. So that's where Azure Purview comes in. And with Azure Purview, we are laying the foundations of effective data governance by making the automated data discovery and classification part easier. So as you can see over here that we are able to scan sources, whether they are on-prem, SaaS sources, multi-cloud sources, and build this data map, if you will. And with this data map, we are essentially capturing a graph of all the data that we have discovered and trying to provide those relationships in the data so that you can essentially consume that data, whether it's a business user, a data analyst, or a data scientist. They can consume that information that's existing in their hybrid data estate. So what I'm going to be showing you live today is how very easily you can use Azure Purview to populate what we call as your data map by setting up these scanners on these different data sources. So let's dive straight into the demo. So here I'm on Azure portal and I've provisioned my Azure Purview account. And it's just like any other Azure service. And once you provision, you land onto a home page like this, and you click Open Purview Studio, and that's when you land into our web experience for Azure Purview. And here on this screen, you can see that I've already scanned across a bunch of sources, cataloged millions of assets, specified some business terms, and then I can do consumption, basically consume information from the map by searching it. But before we go into the consumption part, as I mentioned, let's quickly see how easy it is to populate this map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch into this data sources view. And here you can see that what we are projecting is a map of your sources. And you can organize that by different collections, Now here I've chosen to organize that by data center. So I have a collection for North America data center. I have a collection for Europe. I have a collection for my Amazon sources. And you can create as many as you want. And you can create a collection inside the collection as well. So you have full flexibility on how you want to organize your data map, if you will. Now, in terms of sources, you can see that we pretty much support a bunch of sources today, everything Azure. We are starting our multi-cloud journey with Amazon S3. We have capability to scan your entire Power BI tenant. And then with respect to on-prem, we are starting with Teradata on-prem SQL Server, and it's super easy for you to set up these sources. So let's quickly see how you can do that. So as a customer, you would just come in and say, oh, I want to register, let's say, my Azure Data Lake Gen 2, right? So you'll just select that, and we will automatically scan to see what Azure subscription you have access to. You can select a particular storage account, or you can search for it. You can make it part of a existing collection or create a new collection and just click register. And that's how you just set up these sources. So you can see over here that I've already set up few sources in my account. And what I'm going to be doing here is kind of walking through all of these and essentially showing you that for a particular Gen 2, like let's just take the example of this particular Gen 2 account, right? So actually, let's take an example of another one that I have over here, which is a little bit down. Yes, this one. So you can see that I've already set up some scans over here. And in terms of setting up new scan, all you do is click Start Scan. And then we have full integration with Azure Keywords. So all your credentials are stored there. We are not storing any credentials in our service. You can do test connections just quickly to do sanity checks. Then as a customer, you can scope your scans. So you can just come in and say that instead of me scanning this entire data lake, I just want to scan a portion of my lake, or you can just keep it everything checked, which I'm going to do for this particular case. Then you come and specify your scan rule set. So basically what a scan rule set is, let's just say for this session, we're just going to create a test class. You're just coming and saying that when you set up this scan, I want you to scan all these sources in my lake. And you can see we pretty much support all document file types with doc, PPT, Excel. We pretty much have CSV, PSV, SSV, JSON, Evro, ORC, Parquet, and we are starting with gzip format as well. And not only you can choose these out-of-the-box supported file types, but you can also come in and define your own file types. So you can come in and say that, oh, in my organization, I have this .cust extension in my data lake, but actually that's nothing but a JSON file. So you can create this mapping, and once you do that, you're essentially telling our scanners that if you detect a .cust file, treat it as a JSON. So you can keep all of this checked, or you can uncheck based on what you want your scanner to do. So I'll just keep this all checked. And then you come in and specify that what classifications you want to run on your data. And this is a very important piece, because as a service, what we do support is out-of-the-box classifiers. And what that means is that as these scanners are running, we are able to tag your data to say, oh, this column is a social security number, or this column is an Australia driver license number. And you can see that we support these out-of-the-box classifiers across different domains like government, financial, personal, and we are continuously adding more over here. Now, as a customer, this is very powerful, right? Because we are going to take a sample of your data. We're going to automatically classify the data and tag you to tell that whether it is PII, whether it is a social security number, whether in terms of even security, it's a common password. So not only you can use this, what we call as the out-of-the-box classifiers, and you can see that we already support more than 100, you can also bring your own classifiers. So as a customer, you can come in and say that I have this transaction ID column, let's say in my SQL database, and I can represent the semantics of that either through a data dictionary where you are essentially throwing us a file which has values of what transaction ID would look like, or you could just represent the semantics of that using a regular expression. And then when our scanners are running, they are automatically able to use that information. And if they detect that, they're able to tag that data. So really powerful from a customer standpoint. So let's just say in this case, I'm going to leave all the system classifications on and then choose the transaction ID custom classification. And then I can specify patterns on what I want to ignore during my scans. Again, regular expressions that you can specify. We do give some examples over here, and you can add as many as you want. Okay. And this is how you just come in and specify your scan rule set. Now, for every type that we support, like you saw pretty much every Azure source, we do support Amazon S3, we do ship a default. And the default automatically has all the system rules checked and all these file types checked. So from a productivity standpoint, if you just want to use the system default, you can do that as well. So let's just say in this case, I'm going to choose the one that we created. And then you're just specifying how often you want this particular scan to run, whether you want to run it daily, monthly, weekly. And again, from a productivity standpoint, we just want you to say, let's just say you say last, and whether it's a leap year, whether it's a 30, 31 day month, we will automatically calculate that and essentially run your scan. So let's just say the scan is run and already set up, and you can see the history of the scan over here. You can dive deeper into the scan to look at how many assets it discovered, when it started, when it ended. And not only you can run a full scan, but you can also do incremental scans. So the next time it is just capturing the changes. So I did actually run a big scan just for this particular demo. And you can switch, as you saw, I switched between a map view and a table view. So in this particular case, what I'm going to use is this particular storage account where I ran this scan. And you can see that I was able to discover more than 156 million assets and classify close to 14 million assets in a span of day. And this was a full scan on a petabyte scale lake. And as I mentioned, the next time when you run incremental scan, it would be much faster because it's only going to do the changes. So you saw that how easy from a customer standpoint it is to essentially come, register sources, set up those scans, and populate the data map. And one thing I do want to mention is that, as you saw, this is truly a serverless infrastructure, because from a customer standpoint, you are just configuring the connections, and we are spinning up the infrastructure, scaling it up and down to give you the best-in-class performance. Now, once you have populated the map, then you want to consume information from the data map as well. And that's where our consumption experience comes in. So again, I'm going to switch back to the home page, and this is our search box. And think of this as that we are essentially going to be the Google of enterprise search, where as you type the text, we are essentially automatically deducing the relationships that are there in our map and giving you suggestions. Now, this is a semantic search because you saw that as I typed a business term, so in this case, you can imagine that our company ran a marketing campaign, and I want to see the impact of that on sales. So I just typed sales, and the system was automatically able to deduce that what are the assets in my map that are there, what are the suggestions that it's providing. So I can hit enter at this point, and then the system is going to return me all the results with respect to sales. And now you can further filter it down by asset types, by, again, the classifications that were applied on the data, by contacts, or by business terms, right? So let's just say for this one, we want to filter it by a particular business term. So I'm going to use this market development and sales business term. And here, now I have this filtered down results, right? So this one looks interesting to me. So I'm going to go into this particular table, and actually let's find another one like this one, where essentially you can see that Now I can find all the operational metadata, so all the classifications that were applied at the table level, at the schema level, all the properties that we have captured, the business terms that were applied on this particular data set, the hierarchy in terms of what server, what database this originated, and who updated it. And then I can go into schema to look at the information with respect to what's the technical metadata, what's the column name, classifications that were applied at the column level, the business terms, the data types and descriptions. And one thing over here is that when our scanners run, they are automatically detecting this technical metadata, applying these classifications. But as a human, you can override it. So if you have the right role, and in this case, I'm a super admin, so which means I also have curator roles. So I can edit this, what the system detected. And here, once you do that, our systems are smart enough to recognize human intervention. So as you can see that this was updated by one of my colleagues, and any future scan is not going to update this. So we do keep that. And then you're essentially able to see the end-to-end lineage of the information. And we're going to dive this more in at a later time. And then you can look at all the contacts, who are the experts and owners. And then you can browse this by hierarchy as well. Now, what that means is that as a customer, whether it is structured data or unstructured data, like in this case, it's a table, you can browse it by schema, by database, by the server. And as I mentioned, that if this would have been a storage container or a file, just like you would do it in a storage browser, you'll be able to do that over here as well. Now, we are starting with these open-in experiences where if you wanted to open up your Azure SQL table in a Power BI desktop, we are going to automatically detect if it's installed. If it's not, we're going to provide you this. And once you do that, once it's installed, we will automatically create the pbits file and open this up in Power BI desktop. Now, we are working on introducing other open-in experiences as well in future that you will see coming over here. Now, again, from a customer standpoint, you can take bulk actions where you can essentially come in and say, oh, for all of these, I want to essentially maybe apply a different owner, if you will, right? So I can bulk edit it, apply a different owner, and do a bunch of bulk actions, right? So all of this is available from a consumption standpoint. So you saw that how easy it was for me to set up my scanning, how easy it was for me to populate the map. And then from a consumption standpoint, I could come in over here and then essentially see all that information. And I could consume it both from a business user standpoint by typing business terms, or from a technical user, if I know the name of my, let's say, database or my server, I could type that and search in the catalog as well, right? So all of that is available. Now, one final thing I do want to show you from a custom classification standpoint that I mentioned, right? In our management center, we have this experience for classification rules. And this is where you can see all the system classifiers that we have. And we actually have full documentation that kind of provides you information about what are these classifications. And for each of the classifications, what is the pattern that we are applying? So you can look at this comprehensive documentation to understand how these classifications are being applied in the system. In addition, as you specify these custom classifiers, you can come in over here. As you saw, like in our case, I choose a transaction ID. So you can essentially come and define that. And in this case, I choose to represent that as a regular expression. And I can specify thresholds, a minimum threshold, maximum threshold. And then I can even specify column patterns, right? And I can represent that again using a regular expression as well. So as a customer, you're just defining it, and you can create versions of this as well. And essentially, we'll present you all the information in terms of what type of match you've applied, when it was last applied, and the current state as well. So from a management standpoint, you can essentially manage all of that information over here as well, right? So I'm going to essentially now switch to, if there are any questions on this, I'm happy to answer those.
There were no questions in the chat. I did want to remind people that if you go to aka.ms/learn TV, Learn TV. You can ask questions. This is an interactive session. Also, there is a link that I'm going to share right now with all of the links and things that are part of all of our presentations. Just a moment here. Let me put that up on screen. But yes, Adi, did you have any questions or anything to add?
Yes, a personal question regarding the technology. So first of all, it's super exciting to see that we're addressing it in Microsoft and that we're helping people understand where their data is and actually manage all of it. And you've shown in the beginning how we can connect to other clouds as well to help us manage all the data. Um, I'm curious if you're using some existing protocol or some known open source to support it.
Yeah, so basically what we are doing is we are providing out of the box connectors to be able to connect these sources and kind of scan those to populate our data map. But our data map is built on top of open APIs, and underneath the hoods, we are using Apache Atlas. So let's just say as a customer, you have another source that we are currently not supporting, or we are on our journey to light that up, but you want to essentially use that today with Azure Purview. Now, because we're using Apache Atlas underneath the hoods, and Atlas is a type system, so you can create a type of, let's say, IBM Informix and start to push information into our data map. And once you do that, then essentially our experience that you're seeing over here is smart enough to recognize that, and you'll be able to consume or browse and search, just I showed you for known types, for those custom types as well. In addition, I do want to add one key piece over here. So you saw that as I was showcasing the demo that you can do point-wise connection to these sources. But what we are also lighting up for our customers to make it easy is to be able to register hierarchies. Now, what that means is as a customer, you can just come in and say that I'm going to register this management group or a subscription, and you can stop at any level. And then we will do the heavy lifting of automatically discovering what are the storage accounts, what are the Cosmos DBs, what are the Synapse Analytics workspaces underneath that subscription, and bring it in the governance umbrella of Purview, right? So we are essentially making it super easy for you to find that information in your data state. And not only we are doing this for Azure sources, but we're extending these to other multi-cloud sources like AWS, and then eventually we'll extend this to GCP as well.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I was working a lot with data scientists, and they have a tendency to store their data on GitHub and other repositories. And I'm curious if this is something you might be looking at in the future, or maybe you already have something for it.
So GitHub as a source is something that is on our roadmap, certainly. So today we do not scan GitHub as a source, but as I mentioned that if you want to push metadata for that into our map, you can use our open APIs to do that, but it's certainly on our roadmap to scan GitHub as well.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool. So if I want to learn more and get, hands-on with Purview, what is the best place to go?
Yeah, so essentially, you can essentially go to this particular link, aka.ms try Azure Purview, and you can find all the information about Purview over here and try it out.
So if I'm a total, and that's like, maybe it's like a weird question, but let's say I'm a total newbie to managing data, and I know there might be some governance issue in my data, but I don't really know when, what, or how to get started. Will Purview give me this? Will help me answer that question?
Yes, so with Purview, we are on a journey to provide that unified data governance, right? And what we are starting on that journey is the first piece, which is going to lay the foundations for that effective data governance. And what you saw in this particular demo and presentation that I was showcasing is that part, right? The first piece is to be able to know what data you have in your data estate and to be able to catalog that, to be able to understand that, right? And whether it is, PII data, whether it is personal data, all of that information is what we are starting with. And then to be able to consume and enforce on that is something that we are working towards in future. But absolutely, yes, from a customer standpoint, this is how they will essentially, get rid of those manual processes. And we've been working with customers like Grundfos, like Illimity Bank. And this is something what they have done, where they have essentially gotten rid of their manual processes with Excel, which they were using to, capture the data from different sources, manually maintaining those Excel spreadsheets, updating it. And you can imagine that from a process standpoint was a nightmare. So they have essentially adopted Purview in their data estate, and they are essentially able to use Purview to scan their entire data estate and catalog and classify the data. And they're going to carry these forward towards the end-to-end data governance journey that they are on to now.
That's great. The first time I've heard about Purview was when Satya announced it on December 1st, I think December 3rd it was. And he stated that it's in public preview. So, what does it mean for a product to be in public preview from a customer side?
Yeah. So today, Azure Purview, as you correctly mentioned, is in public preview. It's available in Azure portal for customers to provision, to try it out, and start their journey, right? Because it's a journey. It's not like you just provision Purview and you go to production the next day. So it's a journey to be able to identify what are the key pieces in your organization, to be able to start to scan those, to be able to start to catalog that. So that's what we want customers to do, to try it out, to see for their scenarios, for data governance, how it works and how it makes their job easier. And then as they are on this journey and as we graduate the product towards general availability, then they can go into production with Azure Purview as well.
That's fantastic.
Hey,
Brent.
we're getting to the end of this segment. I just wanted to mention, I'm sharing my screen right now, and I wanted to show a couple of things that Gaurav had mentioned. I guess we're still not. If we could switch screens to mine. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, so I put a link in the chat, but here it is as well. There's a ton of documentation on different products that you need. We also have a bunch of documentation on Azure Purview itself. We also, if you're looking for anything, the launch space, if you go to aka.ms/the launch space, they actually have all the links that you need there. And for example, if I go to Purview overview here, you'll see that there's all kinds of information here on Purview. Also, just a little bit further down, I've got Purview on Microsoft Docs. And as Gaurav was saying, this is where you can start your journey. There's all kinds of information here, concepts. There are some tutorials as well, which we'll dive into a little bit later, and some how-to guides if you're using SQL database, Data Lake, Cosmos DB, and some ways to visualize things with Power BI and a few others as well.